We got a double dip of Monday Night Football to close out Week 3 as the Jags are in Buffalo to take on the Bills and the Commanders take on the Bengals. Both the Jags and the Bengals still winless on the season. The odds say one of those teams is way more likely to turn it around, but the way things went Week 3 and Sunday, woof! The underdogs were barking. We'll see if that continues tonight on Pregame Powerup right here on DraftKings Network. Hi, everybody, and welcome into another edition of Pregame Power Up here on DraftKings Network. Trey Wingo here with Claudia Bellafato. We got a double dip on Monday Night Football games, which is kind of appropriate because most of the favorites dipped Sunday in Week 3. It was a big, big weekend for the underdogs.
Yeah, recap in one word, the Panthers.
Yeah.
The Panthers won, people, okay? So don't overreact just 2 weeks in. It's going to be a set of really good games tonight. I want to talk about some movement that came just about an hour ago, all right? So this Bills-Jags game, the Bills opened 3.5-point favorites. It got up to 5.5, and it was holding steady. Until an hour ago, it moved down to 4.5, and you might say that's not a massive move, and it's not, but it is strange to see all of this sharp money on the Jags come in late, so we'll see if that comes to fruition. And then Commanders and Bengals staying pretty steady. Bengals, the 7.5-point favorite there.
Yeah, we got a lot to get to in both of these games, so let's get right into it with a couple of quarterbacks trying to bounce back and a couple of quarterbacks going really in opposite directions in one game when you look at it. Let's start with Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence and the Jags, remember he got that big contract this offseason? Well, it hasn't really paid dividends yet. Trevor has lost his last 7 starts after signing that massive extension this offseason to become one of the league's top-paid quarterbacks. The pressure is on, and so far this season, Lawrence has just 1 touchdown pass and a QB ranking that, wait for it, ranks 22nd in the league, just above Daniel Jones? That is not the territory you want to be when you shell out the kind of money that the Jags shelled out to Trevor Lawrence this offseason. But you mentioned some of that sharp money coming in on the Jags. Maybe this is why. This has been historically been a good spot for the Jags quarterback. Lawrence has risen to the occasion in prime time. Overall, he's just 500, but on the road, he's 2-1 and has covered the spread in all 3 games. Meanwhile, Josh Allen has failed to cover the spread in 4 of his last 5 starts on Monday Night Football, Claudia.
Trends, we'll see. In the later game, Joe Burrow is off to an 0-2 start for the 4th time in the last 5 seasons. A loss to the Patriots and then a heartbreaker to the Chiefs has Cincy in a familiar spot. No team has ever had 3 straight winning seasons despite starting 0-2 each year. The good news, though, Joe Burrow seasons don't really start until Week 3. Burrow has rebounded well from the slow starts in his career. He's 3-0-1 in the 3rd game of the season with an 8-2 touchdown to interception ratio. Burrow was asked about another 0-2 start this season, and Joe Cool seemed unhot and bothered about it.
I wouldn't say I'm frustrated right now. I was frustrated on Sunday. That was a tough loss, but we just got to go out and get a win. We got to focus on getting better every day throughout practice and go out and execute what we have to execute on Monday. The rest will take care of itself. So, we're in a fine spot. We've been here before. We're not panicking. So we're focused on getting a win and getting better every day.
I wouldn't say they're in a fine spot.
No.
But I'd say they're in a familiar spot. And it certainly helps that T. Higgins looks like he's going to play tonight. And that's been some of the problems for the Cincinnati Bengals and maybe explain some of the struggles that Jamar Chase has had to start the season.
Yeah, Jamar Chase was elated. I don't know if everybody saw that video when they heard T. Higgins was coming back. He's like, oh, okay, so I'm not going to be getting the doubles anymore. And this is the spot. Historically, 0-2 teams, right? This is the spot they bounce back in that 3rd game. But it helps if you have a good roster, which this squad does, going up against one of the worst defenses in the NFL, which they are tonight.
Yeah, again, they've been here before.
Yes.
A lot. Now, I wouldn't recommend always starting the season 0-2, which
Yeah.
is what the Bengals have managed to do. But we'll see if they can turn it around tonight, as they always have. You saw that graphic. Burrow and the Bengals really, really good in that third week. Okay, so for more on this, let's turn into VSiN's Stormy Bonatoni and see if we can get us going on what's happening here. Stormy, we talked about that line changing in one of these games. What are you seeing in terms of where the bettors are putting that cash tonight?
Yeah, it's interesting. If there's one thing that we know about public bettors, it is that they love them some favorites, and we're seeing no different today, except with a little bit of a wrinkle, as you and Claudia mentioned there off the top. 75% of the bets that are coming in on this Buffalo Bills-Jags game are laying the number with Buffalo, yet in the last hour or two, we've seen a full point shift from a 5.5-point favorite to 4.5, and any normal person at home watching is like, well, that doesn't make any sense. If everybody's betting Buffalo, then why would the number become more attractive to bet? Well, that's because of that sharp money, the respected money coming in, those bigger bets moving that number down. Meanwhile, for the Bengals game, we've seen this one go from 6.5 to 7 to 7.5, continuing to lay that number with Cincinnati in a get-back spot. But it is interesting and worth noting, you'll notice on the plus 7.5 now for Washington, instead of the usual minus 110 price, it's minus 115. And usually that is a little bit of an indicator that Washington is also getting a little bit of buyback too, now that you are over what we call a key number of 7 and getting that hook with the 7.5.
Okay, so there's the line, the money line, and then there's the over-under, and it has been all about the unders so far this season. Unders are hitting about 20 or 60% of the time over the last 6 seasons, and it's almost 70% on primetime games when you look at those unders hitting. Where's the money coming in on these games tonight in that situation?
Well, it's interesting here, too, because we talk about how bettors love favorites. They also love overs, typically. The quote of the public is, life's too short to bet the under. We want points, points, points. But we're seeing moves to the under in both of these games as well, despite, again, a ticket percentage that is high for the over for that Bills-Jags game. We've still seen a slight tick down from the 47 to 46.5. And then in the Bengals game, I saw as high as 49 some places, but we're at 46 there as well. So the under apparently the play in both of these games. And Trey, I know you haven't known me for particularly long just yet. I get a little bit weird with my personal bets sometimes. I did a teaser for the Monday night games, and I'm doing it a little bit unorthodox, where I'm taking the Cincinnati Bengals down from 7.5 points to just winning by more than 1.5. So win by 2 or more, that would be great. And then I'm going over 40.5 points in the Bills-Jaguars game. So life might be too short to bet the under in a teaser, but that's the only way I'm playing it today.
Stormy, it's a double dip of Monday night games. It's time to get weird. Let's just be honest about that.
Yes,
okay,
thank
give me the prop bets that you really like tonight in terms of players and touchdowns and whatever.
Well, it was interesting going through all of the different betting splits and stuff over at DraftKings. It seems like Josh Allen in the passing game is getting a lot of love, even though his highest passing total so far has been 232. The prop is set at 233.5, and 97% of the tickets and cash are all going on the over there. They also like the over 1.5 passing touchdowns for him. And despite the change of philosophy that we've seen for the Buffalo Bills offense since Joe Brady took things over, putting more of a priority on the run game, for running back Joe Mixon, his most bet prop is actually over 2.5 receptions. Meanwhile, for the other game, most bet touchdowns for the day is James Cook, excuse me. I think I said Joe Mixon, is James Cook.
Right, yeah.
And James Cook as well for anytime touchdown. And Jamar Chase, I think I was like getting ahead thinking Bengals of old for some reason, prayers up for your girl. But for tonight, first touchdown and anytime touchdown for Cincinnati. Jamar Chase getting a lot of love there. And Joe Burrow over the 1.5 touchdowns getting a lot of play, despite it being a really hefty price, minus 165. You got to bet $165 to win back your 100 on Joe Burrow to have 2 or more touchdowns. But people don't have a problem paying that price.
Stormy, prayers up big time. Absolutely. Okay, let's go to the futures market. What are we seeing about these two teams that most people thought would do fairly well, the 0-2 Jags and the 0-2 Bengals, who, again, been there, done that in Cincinnati?
Yes, and let's start with the Bengals because while, yes, their odds in the Super Bowl market are longer than they were in the preseason, they got a little bit of buyback after that game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Despite losing, people seem to like the way that they played. It was competitive. It was down to the wire. So we saw them go from 18-1 back to 16-1 to win the Super Bowl. And for Jacksonville, I thought that their division odds were interesting. They're still the second shortest shot in the division, but Houston now is minus 225 favored to win that division. They're 4-1, and then you look at the bottom of that thing with Anthony Richardson and Will Levis, the two most turnover-prone quarterbacks so far to start the season. It looks like it's Houston's to lose, and I know you're not asking about the team that's 2-0 coming into tonight, but it is worth noting for the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen in the MVP market opened the season at 9-1, and now he's been flip-flopping back and forth with Patrick Mahomes as a favorite. What's the big, for lack of a better word, bugaboo for Josh Allen in his career?
Turnovers.
It's been the turnovers. And so far, 5 total touchdowns, no interceptions for Josh Allen. If that's something that he can keep up and keep playing Superman, maybe that's the MVP this year. Who knows?
No question. Look, that has been the one thing. He's the only quarterback in the NFL, 5 total touchdowns and no interceptions. Has had a fumble or two, but the interceptions have not been there. Stormy, I hope those weird bets pay off for you tonight. Thanks.
You're the man. Thank you so much. Me too.
Claudia.
Hey, man, I love teasers. Let's not call teasers weird, Stormy. I love teasers. They're very profitable. Jet's a good spot to tease them with as well if you don't want to play with the total. Let's talk about a trend that stands out here on First and Trend. We'll be highlighting the biggest trends for these primetime games. And this time it's the underdogs. I'm not going to bark, but you can see it at the top. The woof, woof in week 3, 7-6. The dogs
Woof,
are.
woof? Who says woof, woof? It's woof, woof.
Do you want to bark?
No, go ahead. I mean, woof. Does a dog woof or does a dog
I think that's
woof?
the Boston in me. It's like
Okay.
the room versus
Woof.
room.
All right, go ahead. Just
Woof.
wanted to point that out.
Woof, woof.
Continue.
All right,
Continue.
it's the dogs. You guys know what dogs say, okay? 7-6 ATS in week 3. The dogs are this number of 5.5, which we talked about, was the Bills. So the Jags were catching 5.5. That down to 4.5 now, though. That 12-2 ATS, an overall record 25-20-1 ATS for the dogs. So this narrative with the underdogs, good for the Commanders. But there's one trend when it comes to rookie quarterbacks that is not so much. Rookie quarterbacks 29-78-1, straight up on the road since 2020. Washington has also struggled to put the ball in the end zone so far. Last week they beat the Giants, if you didn't see that one, by kicking 6 failed goals. That was the first time in NFL history for a team to lose despite scoring 3 touchdowns and allowing none. Daniels and the Commanders went 0 for 6 in the red zone in that game, and the rookie knows that will need to be fixed if they stand a chance against Cincy tonight.
Yeah, I mean, everything is fixable. You got to put attention to detail. It starts with communication, and that starts with me. So, it gets kind of loud down there in the red zone, so if I need to be extra loud, so guys can hear me, or just a focus thing. But all 11 of us all got to be on the same page. We all got to focus for 6 seconds, play in and play out, and move on to the next play.
And as expected, Daniels is getting his yards on the ground, so maybe the arm isn't necessarily there, but so far 132 yards rushing, the most quarterback rush yards in the first 2 starts. You see Lamar at the top, Hurts, Pryor, and Randall Cunningham. Pretty good company to be in.
Absolutely. And, Jaden Daniels is the first player in NFL history with completing 75% of his passes, over 100 rushing yards, and no interceptions through his first couple of games. We'll see if that continues. So there's a big word we like to toss around here. It's called liability. And what happens if these things go wrong for us? Well, that's why we have our undercover guy letting you know the secrets that terrify us. We call him Captain Book.
The annual Monday night doubleheader is back, this time in week 3. And the story for both games is that everyone loves the favorites. The Bills have moved from 3.5-point favorites to 5.5 points, and the Bengals from 6.5 to 7.5 as a result of continued backing throughout the week. With the doubleheader, bettors are also taking the opportunity to parlay the favorite money lines. So we desperately need at least one dog to come through. Jamar Chase has stood out as by far the most popular player, both in singles and parlay bets. At this point, if he scores the first TD, we'll probably end up down for the evening regardless of how the game results turn out. Lastly, we're siding with the sharps on the totals, rooting for the unders on both games. The Bengals under in particular has been extremely popular, dropping from 48 to 46.5, and could get even lower by game time. But that pales in comparison to our primary rooting interests. The Dogs continue barking after going 7-5 straight up yesterday.
Captain Book, thank you very much. Up next, we'll take a closer look at how Buffalo has gotten off to their 2-0 start this season. We'll give you a hint. It's got a lot to do with the guy that Stormy was talking about as being potentially the MVP, number 17, Josh Allen. Welcome back to the Pregame Powerup here on DraftKings Network, taking a look at the couple of games being played on Monday Night Football, one involving this man, Josh Allen and the Jags. Josh Allen and the Bills, rather, taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Bills are off to a 2-0 start for the fourth time in the last 5 seasons. They're looking to go 3-0 for the first time since 2020. Look, they have been really, really good on offense. They've scored 30-plus points in both of their games this season and are doing it with a run-heavy attack, which is really taken over since Joe Brady assumed the responsibilities as the offensive coordinator. Josh Allen is the third player in the Super Bowl era with 3+ touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, and 0 interceptions in the first 2 games of the season, joining Michael Vick in 2013 and John Elway way back in 1991. And here's a look at the least pass-heavy teams through the first 2 weeks of the season. Bills have only attempted 42 total passes. We mentioned Joe Brady. Since he took over as the offensive coordinator in Week 11 of 2023, the Bills have been the most run-heavy team in the NFL, just over 35 rush attempts per game. They also have the best record in the NFL over that time frame, 8-1. And here's what Josh has to say about this run-heavy attack.
I think, again, when we have opportunities, we'll try to hit on those and try to execute as well as possible. But at this moment right now, if teams want to continue, and I think over the course of the league right now, what defenses are doing, playing a lot of 2-high shell and running is in high demand right now for an offensive side of the football. It helps you do a lot of different things. So, That as we continue to run the ball effectively, we'll have more opportunities to hit downfield.
Well, a big part of that is just using James Cook, which we'll get to it in a minute. And when the Bills are finding success through the air, it's because Josh Allen has had time to do so. 335 yards, 3 touchdowns this season when he's not under pressure. It's amazing what a running game will do to that pass rush. That's a problem for the Jags tonight because they have been on the struggle bus to get pressure to the quarterback this season with a pressure rate of just 25.6%. Yes, that ranks 4th lowest in the league. All these things tend to be tied together, and people sometimes see them in separate camps. But when you can run the ball effectively, the way the Buffalo Bills has, it really makes it very difficult to just release the hounds on the pass rush.
Yeah, it opens up the game completely, and top 5 right now in pass blocking. Of course, they're opening up the lanes for James Cook and Josh Allen, who's basically a secondary running back. You're totally right. I was totally wrong coming into this season about the Bills. I thought losing Gabe Davis and Steph Diggs was going to hurt them. I think it only helped them when you look at the fact that 8 players have 3 or more targets right now. There's no point in doubling Khalil Shakir, right? It's not Stephon Diggs, and it makes it that much more difficult. You throw in a mobile quarterback against a defense and a secondary that has really struggled. I do think the Bills are in a good spot right now, and this number getting down to 4 at some shops, I would lay that 4 easily.
I mean, just so people understand how effective James Cook has been, right? You go back to 2022, most scrimmage yards per touch, minimum of 350 touches. Christian McCaffrey, as you might expect, is number 1 at 5.84 yards per touch. Cook is second at 5.77. That's how effective he's been, especially since Joe Brady said, hey, we're not going to make Josh Allen do everything. We're going to take some of this load off his shoulder, get that running game going, which is going to make him more effective.
Which lets Josh Allen focus on playing clean football as a quarterback with his arm. He can just focus on that part of the game. It's huge, yeah.
Absolutely.
And you mentioned the efficiency. I do want to say the team, you would think it's ranked number 1, but 3rd in efficiency on the ground, of course, with James Cook leading the way. I do want to talk about Gabe Davis, a player that I mentioned off the top here with Stephon Diggs, who will now be facing his former team in the Bills. His first 4 seasons he was with the Bills. He caught 33 touchdowns for Buffalo from 2020 to 2023, ranked 10th in the NFL over that span. And now, of course, he's the top target, not with the same quarterback, unfortunately for him, but with Trevor Lawrence, him, along with rookie from LSU, Brian Thomas Jr. They have been Lawrence's favorite targets in the early going here. Thomas leads the Jags in yards with 141, the most ever by a Jags rookie receiver through the first 2 games of his career. Lawrence has been looking for these guys deep as well. Entering the week, he has the 2nd highest downfield pass rate in the league, according to Next Gen Stats, which is interesting because it's the opposite case for the Bills. It's the short yardage situations, the good completion percentage that has worked out well for Josh Allen.
Absolutely.
And as we're talking Jags, of course, we have to bring in Emerson Latia. There's nobody better that can talk about the sadness state of this team. We mentioned earlier, Trevor Lawrence has lost 7 straight games, the longest active losing streak by a starting quarterback in the NFL right now. Yeah, not good. His last win? November 26th of 2023 at Houston. Jacksonville's odds to make the playoff at even money. It was plus 240. It was even money to open the season. Now plus 240 after this 0-2 start. They've made the playoffs only 8 times in the last 30 seasons, and I don't feel any type of way about this team, but one man who certainly does.
He certainly does.
Emerson Latia.
My name is Emerson Latia. I'm 40. I'm from Florida, and I root for the Jags. You know, there's an old saying that being a fan doesn't mean you were there from the beginning. It means you will be there until the end. But these Jags may be the end of me.
And the kick is so good.
My name's Emerson, and I'm a Jagsaholic.
Emerson, this is an all-hands meeting.
Is it? Or is it you guys just can't admit that you have a problem? I don't know what team God roots for on Sunday, but I know it's not the Jags. Plenty of teams still make the playoffs after a bad start, yeah, but not the Jags. Don't cheer for us. The season's already over.
What most people don't know is that's how Emerson normally takes a shower, fully clothed. Which
Come on now.
It's just,
Come on now.
Are those tears, or is that just
I don't think people realize how much Emerson is obsessed with this team. His profile, if you text him, is just a picture of Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
He's obsessed, so he's clearly upset.
Well, he might want to rethink that.
Yeah.
Just throwing that
He
out
might
there.
want to.
All right, we need to rethink and regain our focus here, and who better to help us do that than a man who was in the trenches for many, many years in the NFL, and he joins us now, former offensive lineman Marshall Newhouse. Marshall, listen, first and foremost, I want to ask you this question. You look at the Bills. They ran 18 plays so far this season with 6 or more offensive linemen. You have to love that. What does that tell you about what they want to do?
Well, as a former what they call jumbo offensive lineman, I did that at almost every team I played for. It brings me a lot of pride to see them bring the extra guy in. He's got to do his reporting rigmarole, and you get to have a little fun out there bringing extra linemen. But yeah, I don't think this makes them necessarily like a run-first team, but this makes them a complementary offense. And what they've missed in the past is a consistent run game that they can rely on. I think that Joe Brady has emphasized that now. They do almost everything in the book. They do zone, tight zone, outside zone. They pull guys on the perimeter, tackles like Deion Dawkins, Connor McGovern. So they use a lot of different ways to get this offense going. What that does is take weight off of Josh Allen's shoulders. Now, what we've seen in the entire league is, the trend of too high, forcing teams on offense to run the ball. So this is what they're doing in reaction to that. But ultimately, what they have is the ultimate trump card, which is Josh Allen when they need him. So instead of him playing superhero ball for 4 quarters and then some, he gets to pick and choose his moments where he again gets to turn into the Terminator.
And that's showing in the numbers. His efficiency is the best it's been in a while, best completion percentage. The caveat there, though, is it's just under 7.5 yards per attempt. So nothing explosive, nothing crazy, but it is working for them. They are winning games this way. So my question is, how much is this a compliment to the run game, and how long can it last playing this way?
Well, again, I think this is in response to what the league is doing. Now, tonight, Jacksonville runs the most one-high safety looks in the league through 2 games. So I think you're going to see a lot more opportunities for Josh Allen to take shots down the field. But the low average yards per completion, all that does is you're trying to pick your moments to take your shots. What defenses are doing are saying, we're giving you less opportunities to take these shots. Who can be the most patient? Who can be the most discerning as a play caller, as a quarterback, to then take the shots on offense when they present themselves. And again, Josh Allen using his legs, using his frame as an addition to the passing game allows guys like Khalil Shakir to get open running down the field. But also, you're going to need your linebackers to tackle Josh Allen in the open field. And as he's shown throughout his career, that's a hard assignment.
He's bigger than half the guys trying to tackle him. Let's just be honest about it. And he's a lot more agile. So if Josh Allen, Marshall, is doing the sort of short and quick throws on the other side, Trevor Lawrence is trying to stretch the field as much as he possibly can. Second highest rate in the league in throwing the ball 10 plus or more yards downfield. He's also been sacked on 11.5% of his dropbacks. That is the highest rate in the NFL. How do you sort of marry these two concepts of trying to stretch the ball down the field while your quarterback is getting stretched when he's getting hit all that much?
Yeah, I think the struggles on offense for Jacksonville are all over the place. Now, you pay Trevor Lawrence $59 million. You hope that he can remove some of the burdens from everyone else and put them on his shoulders, but he's just not been that guy. And so I think there are questions about what they got in Trevor Lawrence. But as an offense, yes, sometimes the offensive line is not holding up. Sometimes they are calling deep shot plays unnecessarily. And sometimes Trevor Lawrence is targeting guys who are check downs or shorter down the field, but he's at the bottom of the league in completion for short passes. And so it's just a myriad of things. Sometimes the receivers are open, sometimes they don't get open. Oftentimes they're dropping the ball. He doesn't have a safety blanket either, so a guy he can just throw it to when things just don't look right. And so on multiple fronts, Doug Peterson, Press Taylor, and Trevor Lawrence have not been doing what they need to do on offense. And I don't know how they change it around against this Buffalo Bills defense. Yes, they are injured, but this is a defense that also plays too high, makes you dink and dunk, makes you find things underneath. And if Trevor Lawrence doesn't have the accuracy, the offensive line doesn't have the fortitude to protect, and the play caller doesn't have the creativity to get guys open, I don't know where this Jacksonville offense goes.
All of this is true, Marshall, which is why I'm wondering why Jacksonville is all of a sudden seeing all this money heading up to kickoff. So I guess my question to you is, what can they do to win this game or keep it close if it had to be one thing to really focus on for this offense?
I think they've got to get the run game going and then scheme up some explosive shots to Brian Thomas Jr. He's been one of their lone bright spots. They paid a pass catcher in Evan Ingram and Christian Kirk. Those guys need to show up as well. But Trevor Lawrence just needs to take the plays that are there. He looks shook at times in the pocket. Plays that break down when a normal quarterback would just scramble, take the 4, 5, 6 yards, live to play another down. It looks frozen. It looks like he's panicking. I don't know what is wrong with his processing. So I think scheming things open for Brian Thomas Jr., getting Trevor Lawrence in a rhythm, and then relying on his offense to get Travis Etienne going as well with the run game. They've got to dig themselves out of this a little bit.
Yeah, you mentioned Travis Etienne. I mean, he's got, since 2023, 355 touches, over 1,600 scrimmage yards, over 1,100 rushing yards, and more importantly, 14 scrimmage touchdowns. You would think that would be the solution, right?
You would think so, especially a guy who can catch the ball out of the backfield. But we've yet to see it on a consistent basis, and ultimately we've yet to see it lead to consistent winning. The Jags are on just a horrendous, at least Trevor Lawrence is on a horrendous losing streak. And you would like to think that a guy who's getting those touches, who is that talented, would lend itself to winning. And for whatever reason, it's just not working right now. So they've got to scrape the bottom of the barrel, figure some things out, because they're on the verge of really looking at, this season kind of going downhill for them.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there, but it would be great if they could turn it around tonight. But the way the Bills are playing, that's going to be a tough task. Marshall, thanks very much. We'll check back with you a little bit later. We talked a little bit about what's going on here with the Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen, right? He hasn't been throwing the interceptions, and that is a huge thing for him, because I want you to look at this graphic here. No one, and I mean no one, has turned the ball over more over the last couple of years than Josh Allen and Trevor Lawrence. These two, since Trevor came into the league in 2021, have turned it over 60 times. That's 10 more than the next guy on the list, Patrick Mahomes. So Allen, though, is 17-0 over the last 5 years when he doesn't turn the ball over.
And turnover-worthy throws is one of my favorite new stats that I have found. And Allen has been clean not only in terms of turnovers, but turnover-worthy throws. He has 0, only 1 of 5 players to have that right now. Murray, Fields, Burrow, Allen, and Andy Dalton.
Yeah, well, the Red Rifle, I mean, give it up for him.
Baby.
The Red Rifle absolutely came to play in Vegas. That was one of the stunners of Sunday's afternoon, along with what the Denver Broncos did down in Tampa when they were up 14-0. I was like, wait, is my set not working?
Man.
What's going on?
Congrats to the Panthers, though, and Andy Dalton. Coming up, bettors are high on Jamar Chase to score tonight, but should they be? We'll take a look at some of the recent numbers. That's next.
Welcome back to the Pregame Power-Up. You are looking at the players that made bettors the most money on Sunday. Drake London tops the list. Rashee Rice, Lamar Jackson in there as well. And down there at number 8, how about it, in the revenge game for him, and one of the biggest surprises of the early season, Packers quarterback Malik Willis. Willis, as you know, took on his former team Sunday and led the Packers past the Titans, improving to 2-0 on the season. He scored 2 total touchdowns, running for 73 yards and passing for 202. Looked really comfortable out there. Now, prior to this game, Emerson Lazia hit the streets of Nashville ahead of the Malik Willis revenge game to find out what Titan fans' favorite memory was of their former third-round pick.
We're out here in the suburbs of Nashville, Tennessee, because we couldn't find a single Titans fan on Broadway Street in the heart of Tennessee. Let's go inside and find out just how nervous they are about the Malik Willis revenge tour. How excited are you for Malik Willis's return tomorrow? How nervous are Titans fans about Malik Willis returning?
We aren't nervous at all. We're 100% in on Will Levis.
I'm really shaking in my boots over here down in Tennessee.
Give me your top 3 Malik Willis plays during his Titans era.
Well, honestly, they'd have to be preseason.
Probably the time he got benched.
When he was in preseason and threw that one touchdown that one time.
He did cover against the Chiefs that one time.
Does Malik Willis deserve a tribute video?
Absolutely not.
You excited for his tribute video tomorrow, if they have one?
Absolutely.
So there you have it, folks. Malik Willis, gone and most certainly forgotten.
Yeah, and again, there was no tribute video, but there is this video. Emerson was also in town to MC the Titans' halftime Dachshund Dash presented by DraftKings. And as you can see, Emerson is, he's just firing people up. It's what he does. He's firing canines up more than anything else, and holding a trophy and a dog. It's a good day when you can hold a trophy and a dog. Like that.
Emerson's in heaven.
That's kind of a day. I mean, like if you can hold a trophy and a dog.
Yeah.
That's it's all pretty much all you can ask
And also for all those Titans fans hating, you guys lost. Just so all of that about their poor former quarterback.
My favorite one was the young woman who was just
The blank stare.
blank.
Who?
And then tribute video, absolutely. Absolutely.
So excited for it.
Or absolutely not, as it actually turned out.
Ridiculous. Let's talk about one guy that is hoping to get it going tonight. That would be Ja'Marr Chase. Whenever you think of the Bengals, you think Joe Burrow, Ja'Marr Chase, one of the best connections in the NFL. Well, did you know that now it's been 6 straight games where Ja'Marr Chase hasn't found the end zone? He's averaging just over 40 yards a game during the scoreless streak. He last found the end zone week 13 of 2023 against Houston. It might be a good spot for him to break out tonight, though, entering week 3. The Commanders have allowed 6 receiving touchdowns to opposing wide receivers, 2 more than any other team. In the first 2 weeks, number 1 wide receivers have feasted on their defense. Mike Evans, Malik Neighbors. Chase has averaged 145 receiving yards per game on Monday Night Football, the most all time, and that's sort of a weird trend, but I guess he likes the spotlight, Trey.
Yeah, minimum two games, so it's not a huge sample size, but yeah, Ja'Marr Chase has really balled out on Monday Night Football, and we can talk about all these other things. The bottom line is, if you get T. Higgins back, it's going to open things up for Ja'Marr Chase.
Absolutely, and like I said, Ja'Marr Chase was excited about not having that double, triple coverage on him. Surprisingly, though, it's a pretty good price for any time touchdown, just even money to score tonight. The last time it was that low, he scored 2023 week 13 against Houston. So that is a market I would definitely hop on.
Yeah, and the Bengals would love to hop on the Ja'Marr Chase in the end zone, because that would really make them feel strong about them continuing. As we said, they have been terrible throughout the start of the season. 3 straight seasons, 0-2. And each one of those years they had a winning record, even though they didn't make the playoffs last year with Jake Browning carrying the load for the injured Joe Burrow. But they did finish 9-8. They did finish 9-8, but they have been money in week 3, 3-0-1. They've never had a losing week 3 in this stretch where they started 0-2.
And I think, too, of the 0-2 teams, they should feel okay when it comes to those losses, specifically against the Chiefs, right?
Yeah.
The Chiefs, I've been saying, I'm down on the Chiefs. I don't think the Chiefs look good. You have your best running back out.
But they're
Travis
3-0.
Kelce looks a million years old. Patrick Mahomes is throwing picks left and right.
Yeah.
they're winning, which that's football for
They
you.
always win in September, though. Their record in September is 18-4. It's by far the best record. The Chiefs' numbers are really strange. Outside of last year when it all sort of went to for a while in a stretch.
Yeah.
Normally, they're great in September. You get them in October, and then they rally and figure it out November, December, January into the postseason. Last year, nothing was working. We're like, wait, none of these things make sense anymore. But the Bengals are trying to do the Bengals thing and get back to a winning football game after an 0-2 start. So for more on that, let's bring back Marshall Newhouse. Marshall, what do you think is the biggest reason this year alone for the Bengals' 0-2 start?
Well, it's become cliche, but a lack of continuity. You said just this year, but you bring in years past, the Bengals coming into seasons, if you don't always have your starting quarterback, your starting playmaking wide receivers, and your starting offensive line, how do you expect to then jumpstart the season as a hot team? So Joe Burrow with his injuries, Jamar Chase with his holdout, then a hold in, and then you've got Trent Brown and Orlando Brown and Amarius Mims in different levels of health. You don't have as much continuity, and especially now we're talking about less preseason games than before. The first 1, 2, maybe even 3 weeks are kind of a feel-out time. Well, you don't want to be 0-3 in that feel-out time, but that's, I think, a small explanation of why the Bengals are just a slow starting team recently.
Yeah, injury, contract issues, all of these things in the offseason that, of course, affect the regular season. Trey Hendrickson was one of those guys who was asking for a trade, but he's been the one bright spot for this team. Was tied for the 4th most pressure so far, generating at an almost 23% pressure rate. So that is the one bright spot. They're facing a weak left side with the Commanders. How do you like him to play tonight in that matchup?
Well, Trey Hendrickson is a weapon off the edge. He's big in his second effort as a pass rusher. And you're talking about Brandon Coleman, who was drafted as a tackle out of my alma mater, TCU, Nick Allegretti, who was signed in free agency. And yeah, they're taking some time to cohese together a little bit. But I think Jaden Daniels, being a quarterback, especially a young rookie quarterback, who has been mobile, but sometimes a little bit recklessly so, that plays right into Trey Hendrickson's hands. So I think Jaden Daniels in this Cliff Kingsbury offense has got to find his reads, be quick with the ball, or just be decisive. Even if he's running, get down, make a decision, and don't play these games in the back of the pocket, because Trey Hendrickson makes his living on the edge with second effort, sacking quarterbacks.
By the way, Marshall Newhouse's information is always solid. We apologize for the audio, but he's so good, we needed to make sure you heard what he had to say, no matter how it might sound at the moment. So, Marshall, let's focus in on this. Listen, you mentioned Trey Hendrickson and how good he is off the edge for that Cincinnati defense. It's the middle of that defensive line that has really been a problem. The Bengals have allowed the 4th most rushing yards between the tackles. And meanwhile, we saw Brian Robinson go off last week for 109 yards on 10 carries between the tackles. Do you expect the Commanders to lean heavily on him tonight?
Absolutely, I expect them to do that. And then you couple that with them being 3rd in the league in expected yards per rush. And, this Cliff Kingsbury scheme uses quick throws, bubble screens, a lot of RPOs as an extension of the run game. So along with Jaden Daniels' scrambling ability, his legs, all these things come to play where Brian Thomas, you want to get him downhill against this weak interior of the Bengals D-line, but also everything else in this offense relies on that ability to stretch the field, make the defense run side to side, opening up lanes, and also as an extension of the run game.
You do run the risk factor, though, of becoming one-dimensional. Like you said, we know Jaden Daniels is good with his legs, but not super confident with the arm yet. We haven't seen a passing touchdown. Clearly issues in the red zone, as we saw. Somehow they're getting wins on field goals alone. But again, how long can that last, and what has led to these red zone issues?
Well, just by definition, the red zone is a condensed area of the field. So all the things that worked leading up to the red zone, which the Commanders have been exceptional at getting to. Jaden Daniels has been doing well as a rookie quarterback, if it's limited. But as soon as you get to the red zone, we call it the high red, the red, and the low red, the field shrinks considerably. And so with teams maybe throwing an extra DB in there, and if you're not a threat running the ball under center oftentimes, or really bringing in extra tackles, extra tight ends, and extra fullbacks, then it condenses the field. It makes the quarterback have to make quicker decisions, more accurate decisions. It makes even the receivers have to get to their spots and be where they need to be. And so it brings everyone's execution threshold higher. And if you're a team, a young offensive team that's trying to find things out, Terry McLaurin's trying to figure out, hey, where are my targets? Where are my touchdowns? Well, you've got a rookie signal caller trying to get things done, and the field goals aren't going to cut the rest of the season.
Well, you mentioned the Bengals defense. Let's talk about somebody else on that defense. That's their corner, Cam Taylor-Britt. He is an all-time trash talker. Before the Kansas City Chiefs game, he basically said, Xavier Worthy, he's just he's a little guy that runs straight. I'll take care of him. And he certainly did with an unbelievable interception when Patrick Mahomes tried to hit a rail shot past Cam Taylor-Britt down the sidelines. He came up with that amazing interception. And, of course, he's talking again this week, talking about Jaden Daniels, to your point. He said, they're really just keeping it a very sort of bland college offense for him. They're not asking to do much. It's not really complicated. So he's basically putting it out there that they don't think that that's a real concern for them. So what can the Commanders do with what Jaden Daniels can do well at this point in his career to try and open things up a little bit?
Well, yeah, listen, he might be a little obnoxious and people don't love it, but I love it. And
He speaks the truth. He speaks the truth.
When you're right and you back it up, there's not much else to say. And what he has spoken to is that Jaden Daniels and this Commanders offense are last in the league in air yards per throw. And so, yes, he's speaking the truth about Jaden Daniels, and I think to open things up, you're going to have to get some protection. You're going to have to block up maybe a max protection where you only have 2 guys in a route, potentially only 3 guys in a route. Cliff Kingsbury has a lot of stuff in his arsenal, but it is spread heavy, and he's speaking to it being a quote-unquote college-style offense, and that is true. And so, again, we talked about the run game, maybe a more old school, if you will. Old school being in the dot, under center, letting your offensive line fire off the ball. Then the corners don't like to talk as much when the linemen and the receivers are getting on the second level, and then that opens up things for the play-action pass. And Jaden Daniels has all the talent in the world, but when you make things predictable, as you alluded to, Claudia, you become an offense that just can't do a whole lot. And so I think Cliff Kingsbury is going to have some things cooking for him tonight. I expect them to have some deep, explosive plays, at least opportunities to stretch the field that opens things up underneath with just the threat of throwing down the field.
And we have to remember, he is a rookie quarterback, so it might take some time for him to figure that offense out, which leads me to ask you, is there a chance they could upset tonight? They're 7-point underdogs, pretty hefty, favoring on the Bengals side. Which way do you lean?
Listen, we saw multiple teams who were 0-2 feel a lot of fire under their backsides. I don't think the Bengals are going to let that happen whatsoever, especially not at home, especially with how much they're favored by. Give me the Bengals tonight.
Yeah, 6 0-2 teams won on Sunday. The Titans, the only ones that didn't.
All right, Marshall, thanks very much for the information, and we'll see how it plays out tonight again going forward here. So as we take a look at this, and one thing you look at here in case of the Mondays, the Commanders, the last 10 seasons, well, 0-8, but the last 3 games, they've been really strong, not only winning them, but covering the spread. And you look at the points per game, almost 7 points better, and holding the opponents to almost half of what they had before, and the point differential again. So it looks like the Commanders, for whatever reason, have figured this out after a really bad start over those first 8 games. The last 3 times they played on Monday night, they found a way to flip the script.
Yeah, I mean, those are such specific stats. I love how we do that with the primetime games. We really break it and crunch it all down. But I think what it comes down to is the fact that you do have a really hungry and talented 0-2 Bengals squad up against one of the worst defenses in the NFL. So Jaden Daniels may be a top quarterback someday, but right now he's going through those rookie quarterback struggles. The team is not cohesive really on either side of the ball. I don't think it's a great spot for them here against the Bengals.
Well, listen, you're absolutely right, but we certainly saw a rookie quarterback who had been struggling in Bo Nix.
That's true. Yeah.
Really struggling in Bo Nix. Go down there to Tampa and take on a 2-0 Tampa team and found a way to get it done. All right. When we come back, one thing's for sure, you don't want to go 0-3 in the NFL. We'll dive into how important a win is tonight for the Bengals and the Jags when it comes to making the playoffs. And Next Gen Cats are up. We got a double dip here.
Yeah, a parlay. I think we have 2 games.
We got a cat parlay?
The Cats put together a parlay. Let's see, for touchdowns. Okay. Oh, we're going.
All right.
All right. Jacksonville, Washington. Really? Okay. So So the cat's picking the 2 dogs. That feels wrong, man. That just feels wrong. Here on Pregame Powerup, crossing the goal line. Here's a look at who bettors like to find the end zone tonight. Remember, DraftKings is the #1 place to bet touchdowns this season. Like I said, Jamar Chase at even money, people. That feels like a good bet to me. For more on how people are betting tonight's game, here's DKN social media correspondent Megan Townsley.
All right, with 2 games on Monday Night Football, of course, there's going to be more action in the DraftKings Sportsbook betting group, so I'm eyeing 2 picks, 1 from each game. Let's kick it off with the Jaguars and Bills and our very own Hunter Skolchillas, who is building a same-game parlay for the game tonight. He's picking a Josh Allen touchdown, Dalton Kincaid over 3.5 receptions, and Bills money line, and it's almost as if he's a diehard Bills fan, and if you were to look at his track record of bets in the betting groups, you would know pretty obviously a lot of Buffalo stuff in there. But let's switch it over to the Barstool betting group where Smoke Sports 1 wanted to get in on both of the games tonight. Smoke Sports 1 is taking Joe Burrow 200+ pass yards, Jaden Daniels 40+ yards on the ground, and then he's turning this into a same game parlay extra by adding in a leg from Bills Jags and taking Josh Allen also 200+ pass yards. Honestly, I'm rolling with it too because I love backing some LSU quarterbacks and you can't go wrong with Superman Josh Allen if he makes the right decisions. But where can we find these betting groups? So first you're going to open up the DraftKings Sportsbook and then find the social tab at the top. Click on that button and then you'll find the betting groups button. If you're new to betting or you just want some advice on who to pick for tonight's games, head to dknetwork.com to read all of our top-notch analysis and then come look at these betting groups because this is my social entertainment right now.
All right, so we get a doubleheader on Monday and everybody's just throwing parlays out there. How about this one? Some action from our friends over at the Underdogs podcast on DKN. The guys put their money where their mouth was, preaching all week how underdogs who are 0-2 bounce back in week 3. Well, they've kind of been right. The Broncos, the Giants, the Panthers, and the Rams all won outright on Sunday, which means, Trey, they only need the Jags tonight to cash a $30 bet for over $10,000, and I'm just really mad they didn't get me in on this.
Well, here's the deal, right? This is where you have to really sort of focus. Because, yes, if the Jags win, they win 10,000 plus, right? But if you cash out now, you've turned 30 into 3,100, right? If you cash out now, you've turned 30 into 3,100.
Right.
That's a pretty good ROI.
Yeah, I would take
I mean,
the
like,
3,000.
how strongly would you be committed to the Jags walking into Buffalo with the way they've played and the way Josh Allen and the Bills have played and saying, yeah, this is the one that's going to bite them in the butt?
I don't know, man. All this sharp money coming in late, makes me believe a little bit more. There's a few different ways you could tackle this to, put a certain amount of money on the Jags to middle it, and I'm not going to go crazy with all of that. I personally would cash out because I need $3,000. But hey, man.
We all need $3,000.
That 10K would be nice.
I'm with you. I would say, hey, that's a really good return. I'm gonna settle on that one.
Let's put it this way. Of the two dogs, I definitely agree with the market. The Jags have a much better chance. As good as the Bills have looked.
Yeah.
Jags need the win, too.
All right, you mentioned playoffs. Playoffs? We talking about playoffs? Here's a look at the playoff odds as we take a look for the teams in action tonight. A big game for the Bengals, as we said, and the Jags, as the last 0-3 team to make the postseason was the 2018 Houston Texans. But let's be honest, if you're talking specifically about the Bengals, they don't want to just make the playoffs. They want to get back to the Super Bowl where they were a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And here's the grand list of teams that have started 0-3 and have either made or won the Super Bowl. None.
Oh.
They don't exist.
Gotcha.
It's never happened. We've had 3 0-2 teams actually go on to win the Super Bowl, the 93 Cowboys, the 2001 Pats, and the 2007 Giants. Nobody has started 0-3 and got where the Bengals want to go. So everything's on the line tonight for Cincinnati.
And I would say open 225, now down to 165. If you like them, think they win, now would be the time. It's probably the cheapest you'll get. If they go on a little run here, which it's Joey D. Look at his haircut. He's all cool now. He's so cool.
Oh, he's always been Joe Cool. He's just now fake Eminem with the haircut. So we'll see what
I
happens.
like it.
I'm glad you do. And we hope you enjoy a double dip of Monday Night Football. And don't forget to tune in every Monday and Thursday night right here on DraftKings Network for the Pregame Powerup.